Hi, this is Dave.
I'm Barbara.
From Hiking with Dave and Barbara. You can catch our blog on www.hikingwithdave-and-barbara. And Barbara does a great blog on this particular hike that I'm going to talk about, or we're going to talk about. We're doing a little series of videos called Can You Do It? And it's really to help anybody who wants to do a particular trek but doesn't know which questions to ask. And we're trying to answer some of those questions that we asked ourselves before we did the trip. Okay?
Yep.
What we've done is we've broken down the trip into 4 sections: the cost, the timescales, when and how much, section 3, how hard is it, which is quite important, section 4, services, which includes accommodation and food. Barbara will talk to you for no end on those subjects. And finally, we have hike specific issues to do with this particular hike. The hike in question, of course, is the GR20, which is commonly known as Europe's toughest hike, with some justification, I would say. So should we move on?
Yep.
Or anything to add before we move on to the first section?
Yeah, we'd first heard about this at least 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Haven't we?
Yeah, we have.
And some of the friends have hiked across Corsica, but we were hiking down from north to south. Yeah,
commonly, most the GR20 is commonly north to south over the entire Corsican island. But you can do a mare to mare, which is a sea to sea across. Yeah. But this is the one we're going to talk about today, the GR20.
Okay.
Okay? Yeah. Okay, so let's look at the cost. There's 2 ways of doing this. You can either book the hostels, the refuges yourself, or you can book a trip. We decided to book a trip, and I'll just give you the costs and we'll give you the reasons why. The price for a self-guided tour of the GR20 in its entirety, which is 14 days, is €930 per person. There's also an option to have 3 hotels instead of bunks in the refugios, which is an added €120, which totals €1,050, which in pounds is about £940 per person for the entire trip. This includes breakfast, lunch and dinner and accommodation in the refugios. If you decide to do this yourself, you can phone up the hostels, etc. By yourself. Several problems. One, they mostly speak French, which is difficult for us, that's for sure. It's a problem to us. We met some people on the trip and they were doing it individually and paying for it day by day by day. And actually what the problem was is that it didn't really work out much cheaper. When we looked at it, you're averaging sort of €60 per night per person. And when I total it by times it by 14, that comes to like €840 compared to 940. So you might save yourself €100 or £100, but I don't really think it was worth it. Do you, Barbara?
No, the advantage of having booked it with a company, well, you've got the reassurance of the company behind you. Mm-hmm. But some of the sites we got there, and because mostly we stayed in tents, which were already there, but we got better food and a better location for the tent. Mm-hmm. And a nice, kind arrival as well. We did. Mostly.
We did. For the price, it was definitely worth just booking with the company. The company was called Corsica Adventures, not Adventures, Adventures.
Yeah. Again, very helpful.
Yeah, very helpful and very organised. It was probably the best thing we did, I would say.
Yeah.
Okay, that probably sums up the costs. You do need to get there. You do need to get there. Flight wise, you can go low cost carrier from the UK into several of the airports down there. I can't quite remember exactly what we paid, but it was £150, £200 return. It wasn't ridiculous and it was okay. You going to add something, Barbara, on the costings?
The costings, when you're actually there, I don't know if we're covering this later, the refuges only took cash.
Yeah.
So that is the other downside. So you'd be carrying about €1,000 each to cover the whole of the trip, which you might lose along the way. So again, that was the advantage to us. Only the 3 hotels that we stayed in took card, and we did meet people who were running out of cash. No cash machines, no facilities to get any cash. Sometimes people leave after 10 days, travel to a town, So it takes them a day to go to a cash machine to return.
Yeah, cash was definitely needed, and booking it through the trip, you'd already paid for all your hostels, your refugios. Okay, should we move on? Okay, all right, let's look at the timescale, see if you actually got enough time to do this trek. The trek is divided into 16 sections, and most commonly, or more commonly, those are divided into 14 days. So a couple of the days you'll do 2 sections. So 14 days, I would say, is the norm for most people. Some people do it in 10, 11, 12, but they've got to be superhuman or Superman, I'm not really sure. We did it in 14, but if I had a choice, I probably would have done it in 16. But really, it means that you're going to need 17 or 18 days to fly into Corsica, to get to the start, get from the end to another airport. So I'll give yourself certainly 16, 17 days if you want to complete the full trek from north to south. You can split it down into 2 sections, the north section and the south section. Corsica Adventures will give you a price on that. You could probably cut it down to probably 10 days to do the north, or 10, 11 days to do the north, 8 or 9 days to do the south. Best time of the year to do it, or the only time of the year to do it, is mid-June to the end of September. We did it in late June to try and get the best weather. If you go in July, August, it's very, very hot. In fact, when we went in end of June, it was still very hot, wasn't it?
There was a heat wave.
There was a heat wave.
In the whole of Europe.
In the whole of Europe. If you try and go early June, potentially there's still snow, which makes obviously doing the trip impossible. Anything to add on those, Barbara, in terms of the timescales?
Yeah, but the other thing to watch, if you do go in July and August, it will be very, very busy. The toilet facilities will be busy, the tent, everything would be even busier. Yeah,
it is interesting just to talk about the stages. I when we first started it, I reckon there was probably 40 or 50 persons per night doing the walk. So going from one hut to the other. Would you say that's about right?
Yeah.
40 or 50. So it's not busy, but most of the refuges are full-ish. Anyway, let's move on. We're going to move on to how hard it is, which is quite important for most people. So how hard is the GR20, Europe's toughest hike or trek or walk or whatever? Well, distance-wise, not too bad. 180 kilometres. So you're talking about 120 miles. So if you look at that per day over 14 days, I've averaged it out to about 13 kilometres a day, which probably only works out 8 to 9 miles a day.
Easy.
Sounds pretty easy, doesn't it? But there's a couple of killers. Firstly, the ascent. Over the 14 days, you're going to be doing in excess of 12,000 metres of ascent. Clearly that's ascent and descent. Now you average that out by the 14 days. That's about 850 metres a day, every single day, up and down. Sometimes more, sometimes less, but on average, 850 metres up and down. It is difficult. That is the first bit. The second bit is the terrain. The terrain of this hike is, if you look at our blogs, sometimes I describe it as horrendous. It's climbing, it's scrambling, it's walking on edges, it's chains, it's virtually everything that you can imagine would make a hike very difficult. Have you got anything to add on this, Barbara?
I think you can't actually believe it until you're actually there.
Yeah.
Doing this walk, because you can't imagine how tough it is.
Yeah.
How wrecked your boots get.
Yeah.
With the rocks, and don't do it if you don't like heights and hanging around on a chain with a rucksack on your back.
Yeah. So if you've got any sort of worries about problems with heights, using chains, ledges, scrambling, climbing with your fingers, it's a hike beyond a hike. It is so difficult. If you compare it with the other hikes, Tour de Mont Blanc for example, this is just so much more difficult. Potential for injuries is large, plenty of people packed in, and plenty of people, even in the first 4 or 5 days, gave up. I'm not sure what the percentage was. Is it something like 70% of the people don't make it till the end? So it's a really, really tough hike. And it's 14 days of it. That is the issue. So if you want to do it, you're going to need to practice. And we've practiced down in North Wales. There are some walks which are not the same, but we've done Tryfan and the Glidders, which is the one which I would consider a great practice day walk. You can check it out on our blog, and that's an 8 to 9 hour walk, and it's quite similar. And imagine doing that for 14 days on the trot, and you've got it. So it's really hard. The challenge is exceptional, but if you do it, it is amazing. The views are amazing. Everything is amazing about this walk. The people you meet are fantastic, but it's so hard. 8 to 9 hours a day walking. The normal routine of a day is up at, I don't know, 5:30, 5 o'clock, 5, and you have breakfast early, start walking by 6 because of the heat. You sometimes roll into your place at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and you tend to just exist, try and get a shower, and then just you're in bed after tea. You're in bed by 7 or 8 o'clock, absolutely exhausted. But it is phenomenal. So if you can do that, this hike is still for you. But we'll have a look at the accommodation, because that's the next thing that might give some people issues. So we'll move on to that.
Can I just add one final thing?
Yeah.
Is obviously your legs have to be fit. This walk, because you've got a lot of weight going through your arms, you do need to have very strong arms.
Yeah.
I've always been weight training, so it really, really did come in handy.
Yeah. If you see any of the videos of our GR20, it will give you a great idea of what the walk is all about. It's amazing, but difficult. So let's move on. Let's look at our next section, which is services, where we cover food and the accommodation. Shall I cover the accommodation first and you do the food, or do you want to do the food and I do the accommodation? Okay, I'll do the accommodation. Accommodation is at refuges, but for the majority of them, I'm not sure why they've changed tack. I think it could be because of bed bugs. That's what we think. They put lots of tents down on sort of rough ground or on grass if they can find it. The tents are 2-man tents, or 3-man tents, I would say. They're sort of slightly larger than a 2-man tent, a normal tent, but they are blackout tents made by Decathlon, I think. They are excellent actually, because they absolutely keep the light out, which means if you are in bed by 8 o'clock at night, it is actually dark. You haven't really got an issue with bed bugs, which is an issue, and you haven't got an issue. You're actually I'm with Barbara. I'm not with 100 other people in a dorm with the noise and stuff like that. So you actually get a good night's sleep. They provide you with the mats, and you have your own sleeping bags, etc. So actually, the accommodation on the whole with the tents was pretty good. There was a couple which weren't so good. What I would say is definitely pay the extra money if you can get the 3 nights in a hotel, which splits it up a little bit. That's a great rest stop. Those hotels are actually lifesavers sometimes. There's a problem with showers, of course. The showers aren't particularly great, or there's too many people for the showers, and there's definitely the issue with toilets. It's not as bad as Nepal, but some of the toilets are truly horrendous, aren't they? And it's dire. And if you've got any sort of issues with health or hygiene and stuff like this trek probably is not for you. I think that's fair to say. It's up there. We met some French people up there, and he said he was embarrassed by the standard of refuges. It's a shame, because some of them were really quite nice, and some of them were in the process of being upgraded. But you're up in the mountains, you're up there, you can see why they've not improved them, but they are quite hard work. It is a tough old hike. On the food side, Barbara will probably tell you about that.
Food varied between the refuges. Some in the latter stages in the south, where they had more access by road, food improved. First couple of nights, I can honestly say I was hungry after dinner. There was not enough food to eat, and I can appreciate everything is being helicoptered in. There is no roads, and you are high. but you did lack calories. If you can, take dried food with you to mix with hot water, or take lots of snack bars. Problem being, though, is because you're carrying your own bag, you have to carry all your own food. At some places you could just buy sweets or that sort of thing, but we both lost weight after the walk. That is basically it on the food.
Yeah.
But it was so nice to get to the hotels and have like some lovely food.
Yeah, I mean the food wasn't all not so good, was it? Some of it was actually quite nice, even in some of the refuges. If you want to buy additional food, some of the places had, small shops. Not cheap though. If you wanted a can of Coke just for the sugar, you're probably paying €3. Beers were €6, so nothing was particularly cheap. We didn't drink too many beers, that's for sure. But you can get stuff up there. Each day there was a packed lunch.
Yes, that was quite nice actually.
Packed lunch was quite nice. Normally enough stuff. Sometimes some were better than others, but normally you had enough stuff. You could always top it up if you could find another refuge en route. So the entire cost that we paid for our trip included all meals, including the packed lunch, and that made life quite easy in a way.
It did.
So going back to the trip, I would definitely book through the company, and that worked really well. Okay, we're going to move on to the last section.
You say lunch.
Sorry,
you took an empty sandwich box, which strangely you handed in at night.
Yeah.
And in the morning it was there waiting for you, full of couscous or pasta or that sort of thing. So generally quite nice. Yeah,
the managers of the refuges were all pretty good. We met some really nice people.
Yes, indeed.
And you do meet people on the whole trip. So we'll just go on to our last section, which is hike-specific issues. Right, let's look at hike-specific issues. Barbara's just reminded me of one, very important one. If you want to do this on your own, you're going to find it difficult. Corsica Adventures, for one company, will not allow a booking from just one person. The reason is the hike is just too dangerous. They don't want one person walking on their own. So you need a friend, that's for sure, which works well with the tents to start with. Altitude, it's a high altitude walk, but it's not high enough to be affected by altitude. So you've got no problems with altitude sickness. Thirdly, bags. You are carrying all your bags, and this makes the hard walk even harder. So you need minimum amounts of luggage that you're going to carry. We carried, obviously you need sleeping bags. Maybe ours weren't the best sleeping bags. Maybe we should have bought more expensive, smaller ones. But you won't believe how hard the walk is and how high you've got to go with your rucksacks. So think small in terms of what you're taking, because you're going to be taking quite a lot of water, which all adds up.
The problem was when we were there, it was so hot.
Yeah.
And most of the track is there's no water.
Yeah.
So you were carrying 3Ks, 5Ks of water for the next 10 hours, in addition to the weight of whatever was in your bag.
It's true, you had to carry a lot of water. The good thing was at each refuge there was a water source, and that was good quality water, and it's free, and you could drink what you want. So, but we did meet people on that trip who were seriously dehydrated because a water hole wasn't where they thought there was going to be one. I know one woman, she's a German lady, was asking people for a drink of their water, which I don't think they wanted to give her the water either, because they didn't have that much. So, think about that. Think about the water situation. Was the one last thing, Barbara, on that one? The boots. I was going to mention the boots. Barbara's boots, she has proper hiking boots, and this trek needs better than average hiking boots. The terrain is very sharp. Is it limestone?
No, granite.
Granite. I think it's granite, and it's very sharp. It's just very sharp. So what it tends to do, it tends to sort of break into the front of your boot. Your boots will fall apart after 2 or 3 weeks on this trek. My boots were brand new, and they looked like that. They were about 5 years old when I finished it. Your boots looked like they were falling to bits completely. But
we did meet people with sellotape, with nails in them. Boots had literally fallen apart.
Absolutely. This is not a walk to wear your training shoes or your cheap boots. You get some proper I don't know, mountain rock climbing sort of boots, something that's not going to break. It's hard to describe this walk, but it is just so tough. Anyway, I think we've covered it. If you can afford it and you don't mind the maybe unsanitary refuge conditions and a few bed bugs, etc., and the shower's not being great, the food being okay, but you want probably the hardest and incredible experience, this is the walk for you. But if you've got any issues with that sort of thing, hygiene, then I will clearly give this hike a miss. Would you say that's true?
That is true, but we should say it is one of the best hikes that we have done.
Yeah.
We did achieve it.
Yeah.
And the views, scenery, absolutely stunning to make it worthwhile.
Oh, it definitely was. If you see any of our videos, you can see a couple of very tired people on many occasions. There was barely a day on the 14 days where I didn't think, I've had enough of this. Didn't last all day, fortunately, but I used to wake up thinking, I can't do this. But we did it. The achievement is immense.
Yeah.
You need a gold medal once you've done this. But give it a go. We'll see you again on another one of our little Can You Do It videos.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.